All right, ready to go?
I'm ready.
Well, so actually, for some logistic issue, we probably have to change slides in between. But anyway, please excuse us. So let's get started.
So, good afternoon, everyone. We were a team of three, now we're a team of two, so we're going to work through this and do it very quickly. For those of you who don't know me, I am Shereese Maynard. I am one of the co-founders at NostraData Medical. I'm also the founder of AskShereese.tech and the co-founder of Hit Like a Girl Pod. We focus on women in leadership in the health information technology sector. I sit on the board of Direct Trust that does the trust relationships for exchange of healthcare information, and I'm on the board of Sharp Index, which works on the issue of physician suicide and clinician burnout. I've been doing this for a very long time. I work with startups and established industry professionals, and I'm very happy to be here today.
All right, thank you, Shereese. A lot of boards. I don't have too many boards. Hi, everybody. My name is John Lee. I'm the founder and the CEO of Vivalink. And the company Vivalink, it's LifeLink, and our tagline is the digital link to the life. Actually, Mike, if you can help me to. So actually, my background is from the technology side. Actually, I have a PhD in chemical engineering, unlike a lot of you are MDs. So I have a PhD in chemical engineering, and I work in high-tech industry for my first part of my career. So the company here I created mainly, we have a data platform to automate insights from real-world RPM data. And then we have a full suite of different biometric sensors. Some of them are made by Vivalink, but a lot of are not made by Vivalink. So we have over 30 different sensors from different partners. Then we can gather a lot of different biometric information, and then the platform not only getting the data from sensor, but also processing the data through our platform and providing a lot of insights. So actually today's topic, as you folks know, that is we're talking about the opportunities and obstacles in RPM and AI. So, and this slide just shows you what our company is taking a stab at this. So, as a lot of companies right now are focusing on virtual healthcare solutions, and we see actually there's a tremendous technical challenges to build a fundamental robust infrastructure to connect the patient and physician, right? So you have to be very good at operational aspects, but then in addition, you need to pick the right sensors and edge computing, cloud, and AI algorithm. All this have to be implemented flawlessly and with all the regulatory clearance you need to operate. So what we come in as a company, we say, okay, for a virtual healthcare company, you don't need to worry too much about the sensor and cloud and algorithm infrastructures. Instead, Vivalink can offer all those capabilities for you so that you can focus on specific patient care or logistics so that at end, the whole solution can be much easier to implement, reduce your time to market, and then you can really also reduce the burden of the regulatory challenges. That's the overall business model we have.
So in my sector, in my business, I'm kind of the make it make sense girl. So a lot of times people find it difficult to understand why health IT and all these lovely innovative solutions we have don't actually work, and why they don't work for patients, why they don't work for doctors and that type of thing. And that's the intersection where I work: medicine, patient advocacy, health IT, and regulatory compliance. So I always explain one of the reasons why we see so much messiness and why things can't just go the way we all plan them in our head is because regulation and innovation rarely get along. Those two things don't marry each other and don't go along well. So we can build these lovely models, and they're great, and I always encourage people, the startups I work with, build to your heart's content. But regulation has the 3 C's, and innovation has the 3 C's. However, their 3 C's are not alike. So from regulation, we have compliance, control, and costs. Those are their 3 C's. On the innovation side, we're kind of like the flexible people. We are creativity, we are connectivity, and cash. Now, for those of you who are checking, cash and cost are not the same thing if you look in terms of point of view. Regulators need cost-saving measures for all of these things that we create, okay? But for those of us who create these innovations that we want doctors to be comfortable using and patients to love, we want to make money at it. So it becomes a system where the two shall never meet. And that's where all that messiness comes from. Now, some of the models we see coming now, particularly for remote populations, hopefully are going to change some of that. One of the things that we learned from the pandemic, as horrible as the pandemic was, is that we can scale things quickly, right? But what it did also was create kind of a wild, wild west where a lot of builders, a lot of developers and vendors thought, oh, I can just bring this thing to market. They need it right now. And that's type of mentality, which is true. However, what we also learned from the pandemic is that patients are the people and doctors are the people who actually use these things and have to make these things work for the way we live now and 10 years from now, not 5 years ago. So from the pandemic, we took those ideas and we're thinking, well, while we used to make it very hard for doctors to work with these models and patients very hard to work for these models, how do we want it to look in the future? The future should look more like, okay, we consider the patient first, the physician second, and then who's getting paid third. Traditionally, it's been the other way around for both sides of the thinking. So let's get into some of the AI solutions that you think could help and solve all those problems. What are you guys doing at your company?
So actually, when you talk about AI, one of the, I would say, the key challenge right now is not the lack of AI companies. There's a lot of AI companies, right? I would say is the lack of high quality data for the AI companies, because in order to develop a highly, I would say, effective AI algorithm, you really need to feed in with a lot of high quality data. That's first. Second one is that then with high quality data also can really reduce the time and effort to develop those algorithms as well. So what we've been trying to do is we make sure that our data source, like all the wearable devices, are fully validated from ourselves. And then also in our platform, we also do a lot of work to, for example, like reduce the noise and making sure all the data are flawlessly passed on to the cloud, and then also organized into some very nice modern architecture like data lake structures, so that people, for AI development, they're much easier to use those data. So yeah, that's what we see actually. It's very important to support the advanced development for those AI companies.
Okay, so right now I'm currently, we were talking earlier, I'm judging the Prime Health Challenge out in Colorado. And one of the problems I see with a lot of startups is they forget the data governance portion of it. So how are we managing all this data securely? What are your thoughts on it?
So the data security, I mean, there's a lot of, I would say fortunately, there's a lot of industry standards came out already, like privacy, GDPR, and then security like ISO 2701, all these things really need to be implemented and followed. I think that's going to reduce a lot of heartburn for people.
Now, we did discuss that all the regulatory guidance that we're seeing with regard to data governance has its own challenges, which one of the gentlemen went over earlier. But I also like to remind people that 1 in 5 physician practices in this country still uses paper to clutch my pearls, but they still do. So it's not included in the rule, and it's still going to create those barriers. The other areas we see problems with the information blocking rule is in research. Those also have different rules for how this works, and they're also having trouble getting the information.
Yeah, but one area I think you related to was the regulatory side, right? Especially the reimbursement part. I would say that's also obviously a big hidden barrier, I would say, for the adoption of RPM and AI.
Yeah, the regulators want models to be disruptive, but as we've seen historically, we failed that test. We failed in that scope. So healthcare expenditures are still a large portion of our GDP, and while like use cases we've seen that can are able to lower the cost of care, we're not, right now, that's not the environment we're in. We're in an environment now where we're still struggling to find out how to pay for all this innovation in a way that lessens burdens on physicians and that patients in all areas can adopt.
So do you want to ask the audience, I mean, what obstacles they think will be for RPM or AI? I'm sure everybody has their own opinion.
Are you guys familiar with AI uses in this sector, or do you have questions?
Or your view of obstacles, right? Because
Yeah,
we're
I
talking
guess
about the
that's
obstacles for this area. I'm sure everybody has some opinion. Yes, please, Santi.
Yeah, and I also, because I work on the issue of Black maternal health, I always talk about the data and the data biases, the different issues we find there, and the integrity of data. So I find that a significant challenge. And I always say, you know, we have a lot of models, even some today that were claiming to be health equity focused. And I always say, I warn companies, don't say your models a health equity focused model unless you're prepared to admit that the opposite exists, right? So if you haven't done the studies on why people can't access care or why the data is bad, right, you shouldn't be selling it as a health equity model. So the data points and things we see around like the Grammy scores, that we know that those are challenges we have right now. However, we don't see the modeling for correcting those problems. It's just like, oh, we're a health equity model. Well, you didn't do this, so those are the current challenges. Yes, doctor. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we talked about that a little bit earlier, because you know our latest social determinant of health is digital equity. We know that, but you're right, the labeling's not there. And one thing that I always caution companies to do is like know where you're getting your data and who you're doing business with, and there's no standards for that right now. And I think some of that is because of the pandemic. And I think we will see a shift in that also. I thought that was a good question for Stephen, but I think he's
so as I mean, just add a little bit of comment here is that in a very practical manner, I think right now the healthcare system, they have to really see the relevance themselves and then try to judge by themselves, right? With a lack of the national or global standards on that. So that's probably inevitable for this period. Of course, there's some people working on trying to set up standards, but then we don't want to wait, right? We'd rather certain healthcare systems start to implement it. Then we have the global standards coming up. It's like I think it's a reality right now.
I want to think yes, but I'm going to say no. Trust is funny in healthcare, you know. I always say trust in healthcare depends on the organization who thinks they're creating it. So we have trust between systems, right? We can regulate it and create standards for it. That's one thing. But I always say the most protected and studied on trust in healthcare should be between the doctor and the patient. So whatever we're doing should be making that communication between them more efficient and effective, and one that is protected. If someone does not trust your system or the means by which they access, or you failed in scope. And trust is a huge issue in healthcare. Again, we don't like to admit it, but the distrust that's there was 100% earned, right? It was earned. And you can't get trust by building one solution. You can't get trust by having a regulation. Trust is earned through communication and engagement. I trust my doctor, and I trust the data he gives me, but not because I trust the system in which he operates. So
a similar analogy here is when you look at the actual medical device, even you get 510K clearance, it does not mean you will be really accurate results, actually, you know, because our company, we make medical devices, we know, right? So it's like, it's almost becomes the minimum threshold to get FDA clearance. Then you really have to get the validation data, how well it performs in the real world, and then publish paper, then to get trust. So that's like, but I think to answer your question, I think it's one step to the right direction, but like to her point is that it's far from enough.
Yeah. Standards tell you what they want you to know, but not what you need to know, if that makes sense. Yes.
I have a quick question about the coding and front-end cost coverage for RPM services. So we're down at NostraData Medical in New Orleans and have worked diligently with tens of thousands of patients out with an RPM solution that we built in-house, looking at hypertension, diabetes, now hyperlipidemia, et cetera. And we've always done it sort of for our own, meaning we're a self-insured patient population, so it's easy for us to do it for our employees. We're at risk for now almost 50% of the patients that come into our system. That's an easy sell because we've done a really good job of measuring the value. And there's now RPM codes that are available through CMS, but what we learned right away was that, like a lot of things in medicine, as soon as the codes were published, it still didn't fit very well for a lot of us. As an example, you need to have readings for 60 plus days a month, and it has to reach a certain time threshold. The fact that you're doing a good job at patient management, you may not need to have that many touch points for a patient actually. In fact, it will disengage them to say, oh gosh, my health coach is calling again, I can tell you, start the clock in the background to make sure they spend enough time to drop the bill. So any comments about sort of the direction that you feel like big health organizations or startups should look at from an RPM perspective, where you're thinking about covering the cost if there's not evidence value already on that?
Oh, this actually gets into a lot of areas, one of which is like incentive payments for those models and that type of thing. I always say the problem with those models, and I'm not against them, I think they're great, but as far as from a reimbursement standpoint, a regulatory standpoint is, you know, we say that you have to meet certain thresholds for it. Yeah, you meet them. But then we have to change the threshold, right? So I don't think it's a long-term solution to create those standards for those models. I think it's short-term, short-sighted for what we need now. But there has to be a different way we look at it. I'm the same way about virtual care. Virtual first care, in my opinion, serves a purpose to patients and doctors, certainly. But as they are now, they're not ideal. So we have to find other ways to, make these models work for everybody who uses the system and the reimbursement. So, CMS didn't want to reimburse doctors at their proper rates for virtual care. Because what is the value? And that's what I was saying about your model. What is the value of that? How do we place value on that? Because the regulations originally were written, doctors have to see their patients face to face a certain amount of time within a certain amount of period. But what is the value of that to the patient? We now know that 70% of the population now are, hey, I'm all for virtual care, and I'd like to use it for specialty appointments and that type of thing. However, regulation hasn't caught up to that. So, again, I think it comes down to cost. I think doctors should be paid what they deserve. I don't think we pay them enough, quite frankly. But from a regulatory standpoint, and because cost per patient, it gets into another one of those messy areas. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think it's perfect, spot on. Yeah. Are we okay doing on time?
Do we actually end on time? Really?
Wow. Exceeding expectation. So.
I thought we were going overtime. Where do you see the future of data in healthcare? Do you think we'll ever get it right with regulation?
Well, so that's another big question. I feel, I mean, again, I have to relate to my model. I would say, so what we're trying to build here is that to enable a really trusted data platform for a lot of healthcare service companies so that they don't need to take the burden on by themselves, right? So that's at least one way for us to contribute to this ecosystem. And then for sure, I want to get it right.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is that the AI that I'm seeing is doing good things with removing bias from some of the data that we're using. And I really hope we see more resources put towards AI in healthcare. I wanted to make that clear because we need it.
So one part of, I want another additional comment about AI is that I think we all agree we're like at the very early stage of the AI implementation in healthcare. So inevitably at this stage, I can see it's probably a combination of AI algorithm plus some human intervention.
Yeah.
So just don't underestimate that. Now, I would say the infrastructure has to accommodate that kind of reality. AI plus some sort of call center or some sort of human intervention to make that whole system work in this stage.
Oh, I know. I wanted to ask you also, we were talking about rural areas and their lack of infrastructure and how we're able, and I was talking to you about some non-tech models or plug-and-play type of things.
Right.
How can AI function in a plug-and-play type of, can we get that done? Where we don't have to worry about rural pops having a lot of broadband and...
Yeah, no, in my view, that's less about AI, but it's more about connectivity, right? Edge connectivity. So it's about being able to properly collecting and passing the data onto the right AI engine,
Right.
if you will. So there are definitely a lot of different solutions are coming to the market or already on the market, right? We're talking about plug and play, the wireless connectivity or other solutions. But that's definitely something, earlier speaker were talking about 6G or 5G, and there's a lot of technology in the plan.
I'm just wondering
that.
if like those type of wireless, maybe people don't get them yet because I've seen where they're not getting funding. Mm-hmm.
That will make the data transmission requirement much, much less, to your point. Yeah, that's correct.
And I think it's coming a lot quicker, but like the point I was making that these models right now, VC is pulling away from those models. Well, it's because they're common to me, but we need those models is what I'm saying. And to the gentleman sitting next to you, he has a rural population, I believe he said, and he's doing these mobile health clinics and stuff. And we do need these solutions, particularly for women's health. So I would hope that there's a way to bring them to market faster, but I do see them like in competitions and stuff being,
Not getting funded enough.
not getting funded. And we need them.
All right. Well, thank you all for your attention and hopefully give you some insights here. Yeah.